Timberville Town Council order, August 10th, 2023. Please join me in pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everybody got a copy of their minutes, and I hope we've reviewed them. Come on in. Okay. Anybody have any questions on the minutes? Any corrections, changes, amendments need to be made? Okay, need a motion to approve them, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Debbie. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Clarence. Go around the room.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, everyone got a copy of the treasurer's report. You will notice that Linda pointed out to me for the meeting, the savings has went down a little bit. The reason for that is we're using the police department's ARPA money hasn't arrived yet, but we're spending it since it's a new fiscal year. So when it comes, we'll just put the money back into savings. So we're pulling that savings until that the replacement money comes.
Correct.
Any other questions on any of those? I guess really there's a lot of zoning activity, and any questions on the account balances? Okay, keep on moving. Everyone got a copy of their bills? Any questions on any of the bills? I thought I had one, but I don't remember now. Any questions for AC? Oh, the mini excavator, what happened to that $4,000 bill to get it fixed?
I don't know what it was.
I'll have to ask Chris what that was.
Chris will give you details on that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only question I had. Anybody else have questions on the bills? I need a motion to approve, please.
Make a motion to pay the bills?
Thank you, Sarah. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Isaac. Any further discussion? We're on the room.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Police report, Chief. What do you got for us today?
Obviously, National Night Out was at the beginning of August and was amazing. Cecilia did the majority of the legwork on what she didn't do. The other front office it's we're lucky that since that started, Chris and I had the idea that started years ago, that the front office really does the 95% of lifting, if not more. So thank you to the front office, not only for helping organize it, but also showing up to help make the event happen. Balloons, popcorn, the whole 9 yards. So it was an awesome event. And if anybody didn't know, we got the same amount of hot dogs that we always get to give away. And they were normally at the end of the National Night Out events, 2 hours. They're like, here, take a handful home. They ran out in the first hour. So we probably doubled the number of people that we've been having. That was great. Added a few things, petting zoo, and also Pazuski, if anybody doesn't know, is chief of the Bridgewater Rescue Squad. He lives up here, so he keeps commuting back and forth to run that agency too. He made contact with Pegasus, the UVA, and he's one of those able to arrange. It was Cecilia's idea, and I'm like, that'll never happen. Somehow Pazuski made that happen. So thanks to Cecilia for having the idea, and for Pazuski for pulling that off.
That was amazing.
That definitely got a lot of people's attention walking around to see the helicopter. So the National Night Out was great. I've worked with the John C. Myers Elementary School on some after-school programs. They have a thing called Jake's on Track, and they contacted me and asked if I would help them with their summer program doing the same thing. It was their first year doing that, so that was pretty cool to be able to help them with that. And it's kids that have some issues that need some extra time with specially trained teachers. So it's good to be able to help those kids that see a police officer in a friendly circumstance. The rest of it was pretty much in the email, I would say, other than in the police committee, Austin, the question came up about some of the flashing stop signs and illuminated or reflecting posts. Didn't you speak to someone at VDOT about that, or were you just
Yeah, so I talked to him a few years ago. The main one that I was looking at was the one down at the intersection of Lone Pine Drive and 211, the one that kept getting hit all the time until they put that nice island curb in there. And VDOT said that that wasn't part of the equipment that they use. Typically when you see those things, it's in the city. And so I guess those are items that the city uses. We take over on the streets at some point, maybe it's something we can look at.
Yeah, that was my recollection.
I'll check with VDOT again just to see if they haven't changed anything, but the last time I checked with them a couple years ago, they weren't using that type of equipment.
And I did, we had talked about it sometime months ago, but I did bring up again that Sergeant Hook has applied for a DMV grant for 2 illuminated speed signs, similar to what Broadway has. So hopefully we'll have those at least as some kind of a deterrent for speed on the primary routes into town. That's all I have.
Any questions for Chief? And you see it's yours now, Public Works.
All right, so Chris sent out his memo to the council the other day, but there were a couple things that he wanted me to bring up that he forgot to put on there. One was about water meters. He wanted me to let you all know that there, and I think he reported this before, there's approximately 30 water meters that still are left that need to be changed out of the old manual read meters. We actually, I believe we have all the meters in stock. Is that right, Melinda, do you know?
I think so.
I think all the meters are in stock, but now we're having issues with getting the accessories, the setters that need to go in the ground that are made out of brass to put in to set the meters down into. Apparently there's a brass shortage or a shortage in the brass supply chain. So Chris checked with our supply company and he said it's going to be December. He's being told it's going to be December before those things will ship. So as soon as they get shipped, we'll get those remaining handful of meters changed out and we'll have everything ready to read at that point. As a testament to our maintenance crew, we were talking, or Michelle, I guess, was talking to the representative who handles our meter reading equipment, things like that. And she told him that, we already had, the guys had already changed out all of the meters. He didn't understand what she was saying. He just didn't comprehend that. And he said, and so I think she told him multiple times and finally he was like, you mean all of those meters are changed out already? Because he said typically what they do in other localities is they contract out with a private firm to actually come in and do that type of work because it usually takes so long and so much time dedicated to it. And our guys went through and did it in 3 or 4 weeks,
Yeah,
something like
it's a
that.
short amount of time.
So again, it's just another testament to our awesome town staff. So, Chris also wanted me to let you all know that they completed 87 misutility locates this month. And for anybody who's not familiar with that, misutility, or it's called Virginia 811 now, that's the official title now. It's the positive response system required through the Virginia's Underground Utility Damage Prevention Act. And so anybody who's planning to do any kind of work in the ground, digging in the ground, you're required to call in and have a locate ticket generated, and then all the utilities will go out and make sure that when you start digging, you're already anything. Water lines, it's an inconvenience to our staff to repair them. It's an inconvenience to the residents, water customers when the water has to be turned off. But you get into the other utilities, your gas, your electric, and it becomes a much more life-threatening situation when you get into those utilities, which is why they have that act. All that being said, I think the reason that there were so many more misutilities than normal is because Glow Fiber has started putting in infrastructure in town. And so that's what a lot of those tickets are being generated for, is for their daily out there working on stuff. Chris was out late last evening trying to locate a water line on Walnut Drive because they were getting ready to bore under the road for running some of the fiber. And the map said it was there, the map said our water line was there, but our locator just wouldn't pick it up for some reason. So I think it was probably frustrating for Chris, but they did finally get it, and I believe they bored that. So that is going in. That's a positive infrastructure improvement that we don't directly oversee, but it would be beneficial to the residents of the town.
Are people hooking up to it yet, or are they just?
It's not available to hook up yet. They're getting the way I understand, they're getting the main trunk lines put in, and then they have sent out mailers about, I know different people have received them. They're going to Broadway. I received one about you can sign up to get notified when it will be available. We received 4 proposals in response to our RFP for the water source assessment and development project. And I've started to go through the proposals, but there's some clarifying information I needed to get from some of the contributors. And so once I have that, we'll finish up that evaluation. Depending on how it comes out, I may run it by the engineer, and then we'll have a meeting with the Public Works Committee, and they can formulate a recommendation to bring it back to the county council. So I hope to have that done within the next couple of weeks, hopefully. They've been pretty good about getting information back to us. I don't know if anybody noticed, but the demolition's begun on the building back here. Finally, they come in the week after the last council meeting, had a landscaper come in and clear all the shrubs and stuff out. Apparently there was a ton of poison in there, poison ivy. So they went in and sprayed and let it set for a few weeks. Checked the people that were doing the demo and any surrounding areas in case stuff got stirred up. But they have started on that now. This week they've been out there getting into that, and I expect it probably to progress pretty fast from this point. We had a meeting on Monday, July 31st. The town hosted it. It was with a panel of individuals that Quentin arranged to discuss growth in Timberville on both the residential and commercial side. The following individuals were in attendance: Chris Quinn, who's the Executive Director of the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce; Jay Langston, Executive Director of the Shenandoah Valley Partnership; Keith May, who's a broker with Cottonwood Commercial, and one of the individuals who's been responsible for a lot of the commercial movement of properties around Timberville. Pop Shelf is one of them. Kevin Flint, who's Planning Commissioner with Rockingham County; Don, Sharon, Debbie, Quentin, and myself were there. And it was a very productive meeting. You all feel free to add whatever you want. We talked multiple different topic areas: how to grow Timberville, what our goals are for growth, where we want to get to. Kevin Flint made the recommendation that we talk to the Rockingham County Public Schools because of the growth and how it would impact the Plains Elementary and the other higher schools around here. Because they're in the middle of reevaluating, trying to take the pressure off of some of those schools in the county that are experiencing a really heavy volume of students. The way I understand it is they were looking at Plains as kind of being one of the relief valves. So I did actually get a meeting set up with the leadership administration for Rockingham County Public Schools. That's going to be on Tuesday, September 5th, I believe it is. And I think we're going to meet up at the county school building. But just to get to sit down and talk to them and explain to them what we're doing and what kind of information they would like to get from us as we go through this growth process, so they can include that in the plans. I haven't talked to any of the other entities that Kevin Flint recommended to get in touch with, because I felt that the school system is the priority right now, since they are in the middle of that process. But we will get something set up with the county and any of the other entities that they mentioned too.
And Jay sent you the email with a list of some of his takeaways and some suggestions
Right.
and stuff
Yeah.
about the economic development.
Yeah, so, thank you very much for arranging that group to get together, and I appreciate what Jay sent over. It gives us a great place to start from, a great basis to launch our endeavors from. So,
Yeah.
do you have anything?
The other thing I'd add is, with a staff of 4, it's hard to know most everything, if that makes sense. And having that group together that we can lean on and get advice is nice to know they're out there. And it's not going to be our first meeting. We're talking about having one, I don't know, every few months and seeing where we stand and that sort of thing. But no, I think it's good to have a group of experts, because we aren't the experts on this kind of how you market your town, how you handle this type of growth. I've never thought about schools, which is an obvious thing. We would have thought about talking fire rescue also, because that's gonna increase the demand on fire rescue squad, everybody.
Yeah.
And the growth is coming sooner or later, and we need to prepare ourselves for it. Because like you said, we have over 100 homes. Is that in the works between?
That we're planning.
Yeah, that are planned right now that we've approved.
The second phase of the orchards, which was 40, the development off of American Legion Drive, which is 40, and then the one behind Food Line, so that's another 40, 47, so you're well over
120,
100.
130 homes that are going to come as soon as the market gets to where it's worth building.
Right.
Okay. No, I think it was a good meeting. Debbie, you have anything to say?
Not at this point.
Thank you for coming.
It was very informative, yeah, and to know that those resources are available. I know Jay and Chris said that when we meet with you about, what they can do, like web page or
Right.
marketing and things like that. So
Yeah, and Jay
they
just,
had people that was their job. and-
right, yeah, and that was some of the stuff that Quentin referenced. Jay sent over an email with some of the stuff, and so, it was really good information. And, let's see. I received an email notification late yesterday evening that the pre-application for the transportation alternatives funding for the Memorial Park Drive sidewalk has been screened in. And this means that we are now allowed to submit the full application. So that pre-application that you have to put in has made it through, and so now we can submit the full application. VDOT contracted with a firm to go through the screening process and to provide over the next several months more detailed cost analysis. So hopefully we get a better grasp on what this could potentially cost, and to see whether or not it's actually feasible for the town to take on the project. I did see something in one of my notes that I was going through today, that apparently there are some other funding sources that I'm going to look into that can be used as that match.
Okay.
So if that's possible, they're pretty competitive sources, but we'll definitely explore that and see if we have an opportunity there to get some of this accomplished. And that's all that I have on public works.
What about the Spar Mine water line project?
Quentin's office has drawn up the deeds for the easements, and Quentin and I just need to sit down and talk about them, and he put in some optional language, and I'm going to talk to him about some of that. And then as soon as we get that, he'll get clean copies to me, and we'll send them out to the property owners. And as soon as we do that, then it can go out to bid.
Yeah, I think after the meeting tonight, if you have time, we'll look at that and get that finalized, so we can get it finalized tomorrow. And then, are you a notary, Belinda? So it may be easiest if I send the deeds to you, you prepare them, and then people can stop by the town office to get them signed and notarized, and then you can get them back to me, and then we can get them recorded.
Yeah, what we'll do is when you send them down, I'll make copies and either email them or drop them off to let them review.
Yeah.
That way they have
Yeah,
time
yeah,
to
sure,
look at
sure,
it.
sure.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, instead of in the Harrison.
Yeah.
But that's the only big project remaining to see where it stands.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it's less.
Yeah.
But we haven't been that lucky so far. That's all I have. Anyone else have questions for AC? Okay. Business and industry, I don't think you have anything for that right now, do you?
The only thing I wanted to do was, and we were actually, Melinda and I were talking to Mr. and Mrs. Bowman about this before the meeting started, but Paula had contacted me the other day about the Tools for Schools, Stuff the Bus campaign, and I sent that out in the council meeting. Ended up, Walmart did have a Stuff the Bus event going on over there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but we didn't have any notification of any of this to be able to advertise it for them. And they only had, when we looked at Walmart's Facebook page, there was only, was it Friday or Saturday when they posted, they made one posting. We're still trying to figure out, and I know you were over there, was it on Monday?
I was over there shortly afterwards, and the thing was still setting in front. I went to the management to see if they were going, because it said for this Saturday, but it was from the previous Friday for this Saturday. And I was asking, are you still going to have it a second time, because we want to help you advertise? And they said, no, we're done with it now.
Yeah.
But we got to figure out a way to It's hard to get all businesses and tell them what they're doing because we want to help, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we do need to get with Walmart and see if somehow they can give us, or we can put it on our calendar next year and say it should be about this time, we need to ask to see what it is. Because my understanding is anything that's brought here stays here, is that correct? Or is that not correct?
We think that's how it is with the Walmart, with
Okay.
the stuff, the bus. The tools for schools, everything is going to go to Harrisonburg, to the Valley Mall.
Yeah.
And people would have to go to the mall to shop.
The-
So there was a lot of confusion on the changes, and so that was, Paula asked if there was a way that the town, because Mount Crawford has hosted a Stuff the Bus for the past 3 years, I believe it is. So they have their volunteer basin already established. We talked to staff about it, and included Debbie in on that conversation too, since she's a school teacher. Seemed like the logical thing to do. But we just, talking with staff, it was such a short time frame that we don't have the people to man it. And then we found out that Walmart ended up doing an event. So, yeah, hopefully we'll reach out to Walmart and see if we can get something,
Right.
communication established for that for next year. So,
And I would give that feedback to the United Way, to Amanda and Joe, and let them know how, it wasn't well attended, or you didn't, about the information and people having to travel to town and all that. Because they want that feedback, because they were just trying to do something different, because the stuff, the bus participation was waning, and so they were just trying to reimagine it. But they need to know if it didn't work, why, and how they can change it for next year.
and I think people like to see anything they donate stay in their community in this section of Rockingham County or their section of Rockingham County. So when it all goes to Harrisonburg, the individuals who may be in dire need of these supplies may not have resources to get to Harrisonburg to get those supplies. So anything we can keep in the locality is always a positive.
Okay. Anybody else? So, yeah, move down to Parks and Rec. As far as the Parks and Rec, I know the vandalism's been all cleaned up, you put that in. What are we calling it, the stage? The
Stage bandstand.
bandstand or whatever. If you haven't had an opportunity to go down to the main facility and check it out, it is just amazing what the guys have done. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's got, a company's gonna make the front stage for us in the next little while, and it'll be done, and right now it looks like it's gonna come in under budget, and so it leaves us money for the speakers we talked about buying down, or the sound system for the, stables, so we can let people know what's going on instead of trying to spend one microphone. I think that's all I have for Parks and Rec right now, I think.
Chris is working with, talking to different contractors.
Oh,
Since
yes.
we're acting as GC for the bathroom project over at the American Legion Park, so Chris has had some good conversations with contractors recently that would be subs for us.
Getting somebody who's interested in just a few $100,000 job, and it's a shame you say a few $100,000. There's too many other big jobs, and it's hard to get someone. $100,000 isn't a big job anymore, according to them. According to us, it's a big job, but, and you do have this engineer working on the plans, so we have plans to show.
And they actually sent over a draft copy of those today, this afternoon. I sent them to Chris, he's already looked at them. They don't need to be overly complicated, but it does give any subs that we talk to something to go off of. And so I think we'll have those plans, it won't be long to have finals on those.
Okay, that's all I have for Parks and Rec. Finance? Nothing right now? Linda? Okay, personnel?
I just thank all of the staff that showed up, like JR said, for National Night Out, and the council members that showed up for that.
Don't know what more you can ask.
Everybody's having a fun time. Everyone's having a good time.
Perfect evening for it.
It was
So,
perfect.
yeah.
Plains, again, sorry, I did Plains and Dane District. Plains District Memorial Museum. I know you got something for us tonight.
That'd be you.
I see your paper.
I'm older a little late this month.
We all are.
On
August the 23rd, 1916, 19 and a half acres of land was bought for $300. Now, it was an area of the drugstore and old mini store, right through there. And I think it was tomato plantation one time, had acres and acres of tomatoes. I think Lester Garber, known as Booty, he's the one that had it, I think.
Okay.
But I don't know what years it was. But in 1916, the people in Timberville were getting the daily use record for 2 cents a copy. A subscription for a year was $2.50 if paid in advance. Going up a little bit, hasn't it?
You bet.
1916 again. Timberville was the largest livestock shipping center in Virginia and one of the largest in the country. That was C. Driver and Company. They did about $1 million worth of business a year. And you always see the driver, you always see it CC, his first name was Cornelius.
Okay.
January 25th, 1916, an agreement was reached between the Timberville Water Corporation and the Southern Railway for the corporation to provide water for the locomotives at Timberville. There would be a 50,000 to 75,000 gallons daily for a flat rate of $2 per day. The contract was for 5 years. The tank held 60,000 gallons.
Where was that at?
Down there close to the old farm group, we talked about this
Right.
before, and the pilings are still
The
down.
pilings, okay, that's what I thought.
Was
Okay.
was still down where the tank was at.
Okay. Okay.
January 1943, a windstorm blew the bell tower from the Timberville High School. Instead of rebuilding the tower, they tore down the bell. I talked to one in Newmark one time that was at school in Timberville when that happened, but nobody got hurt or anything. But June 7th, 1943, 16 people graduated from Timberville High School. 1908, the poultry plant over here started in 1940, but in 1908 there was a poultry processing plant down close to the old farm bureau, right along the railroad tracks. And looks like we're going to lose another building.
Looks that way.
And we talked about this before, but the Ziegler Tannery started in 1940, and a lot of the bricks were used out of the Polytechnic Institute in Newmarket, which was built in 1876. They called the bricks Timberville, and that's what a lot of these buildings were used for when they built the Ziegler Tannery. So when they tear this down, we need a few bricks.
Definitely. Okay, thank you, sir. Council, does anyone in council have other business at this time?
The only other thing I'm going to bring up, Kyle O'Brien in Broadway and I met with Joyce Nussbaum with VPAS in the past several weeks, and she's kind of taken over new roles in that organization. Their attendance down here at the center has been, well, when COVID hit, they didn't have the center open, and then once everything opened back up, I think the return just didn't occur. And so they've been offering some programs down, the VPAS has been offering programs down there, but they just haven't been very well attended at all. So Joyce is looking for recommendations. I've talked to Cecilia about it. I think Kyle's probably talked to his staff about it. We're just trying to come up with ideas of how to publicize any events they have and try to get the word out about how to get people to use that service down there. So that's one of the things we're working on for the residents of Timberville and the surrounding area. So if anybody has any ideas on how we can drum up the participation for those events, we're all ears.
Okay. Anybody else? And we'll open up to the public. If anyone wants to ask a question, make a statement, please come up to the mic, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sharon Dean. I live on East C Street,
Okay.
and sometimes we exchange mail by accident. First of all, I'd just like to thank you all for your public service and for serving the community. I had a situation yesterday. It's not a complaint, but just a concern. When the Globe Fiber people came through our street, I looked out, and there's all this heavy equipment in the front yard. No one had knocked on the door. No one had approached. It was sitting on my front yard. So I called, I think, the police number that I have. It's not an emergency, didn't get through. So I called the town, and the town said, we are advising on the residents, if it's a glow fiber problem, to call the supervisor and not the police. So I called the number and I got some guy's personal answering machine, and he wasn't there, and he might be hunting or fishing or whatever. And so then he called me back in a few minutes. But I had tried twice before I made any calls to get the people's attention and asked them, can you move your stuff off my yard? And they completely ignored me. He might have had headphones on, which I would think would be a safety issue if you're working on a public street, but they completely ignored me. So I guess when I got off the phone, I thought, citizens should be able to call if there's someone trespassing in their yard, and it should not matter whether it's a big corporation or, Joe Blow. So I just thought I would just bring that up and ask if, what the understanding was, and, is that standard? Is it, I think the citizens should have a freedom, to call if anybody's trespassing on the land. It should be able, the corporation sort of gets a pass. That's just sort of my take on it, so I'd like to.
So, we had this, when they first started coming into town, we had different calls come in. I got in touch with Glow Fiber. They were supposed to put notification on put door hangers out, and I think they've done maybe a little bit better with that, but any place that we had seen any issues before, they were working in an easement. So you said it was in your front yard then?
In my front yard, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, without looking at any
Right.
flags, I don't know
Right.
what easements would be.
Right, the
Out there.
secretary mentioned that too, and I said, no, it's not an easement, it's, my front yard, and I, trying to, hey, can you move that? So, by the time he came down to check it out, they had left, so.
Yeah.
But I just, is that, when they first came in, was that an understanding with the town, that if there's an issue, that it wouldn't go to the local police and that would go to the company instead?
So we contacted, I contacted Glow Fiber or Timberville and asked them, because we told them we were getting these complaints coming in. And that's when they gave me that supervisor's phone number and said, if anybody calls in and has issues, make sure that they call him. We didn't have any, with the others, we didn't have anything. Nobody was looking for the police department. They were just kind of wondering why they were on their property. And, and I went through and looked at these properties that had called in, expressing their concerns. And everywhere that Glow Fiber was working at that time, they were in the in the easements. So
it was,
but it's definitely something. It's good to know, because that way I can reach out to them
yes,
again.
because I thought, if the guy had just responded to me, we could have had a conversation, wouldn't have bothered anybody, but that didn't happen. I will make one more comment before I sit down. Thank you for your comments. I recently made a trip to Arizona where my husband and I were missionaries on an Indian reservation for a number of years. And I was a guest at a local tribal elderly complex, a huge, wellness complex. And they had free Tai Chi classes for the elderly, and it's, fall prevention, and, I was welcomed, and there were, and it was a very good, strong program. And when you mentioned that about looking for things, I think real practical things that people can do that's not putting forth a lot of money, but would increase the safety, besides socialization and everything else, and, would increase their stability and their safety. So anyway, that was a really good program.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
With the program that they've had down there in the past, they've always done lots of stuff that had to do with fall prevention and exercises to, to help with balance and coordination and things. So I don't think the programming is the problem. I think it's trying to get the people to come and take part of the programming. But it's what
some PR.
Right, exactly, and that's what and I think that's the big component that they're looking for, is to how can we market the activities better.
Thank
So.
you.
What is, just for my understanding, so what is the typical easement on a road like the Champlain easement?
It varies. I mean, like we can have, we have easements for water and sewer lines. Our typical easement is 20 foot in width, 10 feet on each side of the line.
Right.
But then you have other utility easements that could be 30 or 40 or 50 feet in width, because you have phone, cable, sewer, whatever, that are all in the same easement. So the widths vary considerably. Yeah.
And you have some places where the easement for connectivity issues or other things, it may cut across a yard. So without doing title work, it's impossible to know exactly where they are. I would say the most custom is usually 20, sometimes 30 feet along the property line or adjacent to a public roadway.
Okay. So basically, roughly.
And so a lot of times you would have 20 feet into a yard off of a roadway.
So 20 feet of the yard you own, they have a right to use.
Correct. For the utilities.
Okay. And it can be confusing.
Oh, yeah, and especially in older towns like Timberville, because a lot of times you really get into prescriptive easements where the infrastructure was in place and there wasn't an easement recorded, but it's been in place so long that you have a right to use that. Well, it gets very frustrating when we go out and try to dig up water lines and they're all over the place.
And to be clear, we talked about this when we did the franchise agreement for Shintel, because part of the franchise agreement is the town granting Shintel the authority to locate their utilities within any Timberville public right of way or any easement that we own. So that's why they had the authority to operate in the town to begin with. Yeah, but they were limited to the space, that's
Limited to
just the
easement.
easement.
Okay. Anybody else? Thanks for coming. Anybody else? Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.